Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jay today going over all the abilities in Avowed. I'm going to list my top 10 that I think can suit almost any playstyle, early 1 to 5 level. And another 5 that I think are definitely special depending on what playstyle you choose. And I will be going over every single one of them, giving a little bit of opinion about some of them, whether they're good or bad. Maybe a few tips along the way too. So if you find this video useful, leave a like. Of course, we are going to be delving into how to create your character class, either the wizard, the fighter, or the ranger. But there's definitely room to make maybe subclasses, a bit more stealthy assassin, a bit more of a berserker tank, or a spell mage. Let me know your favourite abilities if you've got some time in the game, and hopefully this helps you out. If it does, leave a like, and let's go. So there's pretty much 3 classes you can build your character around: ranger, fighter, and wizard. Of course, you can delve into things a bit. You can go a bit more stealthy route with daggers. You can maybe go for more tanky builds or complete berserker, or try a bit of a spell sword with mage or wizard. I did use a mod to unlock more points for this showcase today, so I really want to give all of it in one go. So yeah, you can go check out the mod page Nexus for more. You can of course respec anytime you want, so you can mix and match your classes, but it does start costing more and more gold, as like most games. At the beginning it's only like 500 or 600, and then it goes all up to 2,500 at some point. Combined with the fact that upgrading your gear does become a bit stingy too, since a lot of the resources are kind of hard to come by, so you kind of have to really be careful about what you choose to invest in. And adding to all of that, enemies don't respawn because the game is trying to guide you to a new zone, not become infinitely powerful in the first zone and then just obliterate the rest of the game. But resources don't respawn either. So you're forced to spend quite a bit of gold on certain places, or yeah, searching every nook and cranny to get the stuff you need to upgrade your gear. So yes, you can mix and match your abilities and maybe change your playstyle, but be warned, to make that work in synergy with your gear, it's going to cost you a lot in either time, searching for the resources, or buying them from traders with gold. So let's start with the 10 skills I think every playstyle should unlock. Constant recovery under the fighter tab is a level 1 skill, and it's going to last for 12 seconds, basically giving you constant re-healing of 50% of the last amount of health lost. So it won't get you to full health sometimes, but depending on how much damage you just took, coupled together with you making sure you're cooking a bunch of foods, I think this is a good one, just give you that little bonus health quickly after a fight. It will save you using up maybe more precious health potions, and yes, getting it to rank 2 will increase it up to 75% of the amount of health lost, and rank 3 100%. And just like a lot of the fighter abilities, getting the higher ranks is somewhat easy, as rank 3 is level 8 player level. Parry ability is something you have to learn, it isn't a base default. It's a typical shield, but you can parry your 2-handed swords or 1-handed weapons as long as it's free hand in the other hand. And supposedly even if you hold a wand one-handed, which I never really tried. But yeah, more stun when you level it up. It's also an early game shield you can buy from one of the traders that gives you a friendly beetle that fights by your side with every successful parry, so you need this ability to make use of that. Devastating criticals in the fighter tab adds 30% more melee damage to your critical hits. So yeah, lucking out if you're a mage user. But there's been plenty of times I have switched to a dagger while I'm wielding my wand or my grimoire, and I still think it's worth using, especially with all the choice of melee weapons that you have, 2-handed, 1-handed, as well as dual wielding. Level 2 and 3 both increase the amount of damage that you do. Shadowing Beyond is in the ranger class, and yes, you can go stealth mode and silently appear behind an enemy. And yeah, it allows you to pretty much go invisible and set up your attack exactly how you want on who you want. Just make sure you've taken a essence potion just beforehand, or it's at full capacity. And this can be really powerful when you combine it with some of the other skills. And it just gets you out of trouble. If you're getting your ass kicked and you want to take a moment to regroup, equip some new weapons, then using it you can slink away. Yes, the game does pause when you're in your menus anyway, but it's still good to go ahead and get out of the action just in case you do need to set up new attacks or stick with ranged. Level 2 you get more attack damage and speed, and at level 3 you won't drain as much essence when you're moving around. So yeah, absolutely become one of my new favourites. Scavenger feels like something that won't be that useful, so what if you get an extra herb but you're picking up loads of herbs? But as you'll soon realise when you're trying to upgrade multiple different sets of weapons and gear, you'll quickly run out of some of the more important stuff. So them little extras, when you gather them, are definitely going to be in need. Crafting upgrade materials cost 25% less? Yeah, maybe. Certainly if you are someone that experiments a lot. and you are going to be upgrading different sets. Otherwise, if you've got just one set that you're going to stick with, maybe not such a big deal. The Arcane Veil, I definitely think you should get, even if you're not planning to be a mage. You lose in the bonus if you're not going to be a mage with the uninterruptible spells, which are geared towards Grimmers. But the damage reduction by 50%, and then the bonuses like blocking incoming projectiles, I think are good for any kind of build. So it will just give you even more protection. And of course, even better, it fires them back at them. And it still becomes useful even if you're a melee user, because at the 3rd level, which will take a while to unlock, it will knock back melee hits as well. I quite like minor missiles. It's just a really quick ability to activate. It will go and do its own thing with an enemy right in front of it, and it will do quite a bit of damage. The more that you upgrade it, the more of the missiles that you can fire. These abilities are in no real order, by the way. I'm not saying these are number 1, just the 10 that I think are good. And I'm going to diverge a little bit depending on what kind of gear set you're going to be playing. But for sure, for medium and heavy users, reducing how much stamina costs is pretty important. That's why you should get Armoured Grace in the Fighters tab. It reduces the penalty by 15, and then 25 and 30 by level 2 and 3. Again, maybe level 3 isn't something you maybe want to waste a point in. There really isn't much other than certain meals to go ahead and help with your stamina overall that really give it back to you straight away. So unlike Essence, where you can just take a potion or eat foods and your health, stamina is one that anything that can help definitely get. And yeah, maybe a bit obvious, but Armoured Essence, pretty much the alternative for your mage build. It will reduce the essence penalty for your light and medium armors, especially if you are rocking medium. I'd say out of the 10, maybe this is the last one to unlock though, because you probably won't come across any decent medium armors that you really want to work with until you've got a good way in the game. And likewise, you might not have even unlocked a bunch of spells to even take advantage of having a big essence bar. And no matter what kind of game I play, I always try and just give myself extra health, and that's what toughness does in the fighter tab. Unlock 20% extra with rank 1, and then 35 and 45 for rank 2 and 3. Again, another argument that you could just eat foods, take healing potions, but I often found I was getting really close to running out of healing potions, bearing in mind I spent a lot of time gathering every resource I could get. And a lot of foods don't do it instantly, they do take a bit of time to regen your food and your health. So you're going to have to get up to level 15 for this one in Ranger, but it's the bear ally. And this guy, I swear, would stick around and just do a lot more damage than my actual companions. Level 2 and level 3, you're just going to increase how much damage it does and how long it can stick around. And yes, it summons a giant bear to help you for 30 seconds at unlock 1. It does cost 50 essence, but at that stage you should be absolutely having a huge essence bar. But yeah, I really like this one by the time I got to use it. Then we've got Flurry of Blows, which I think is really suitable for dual wielding, especially daggers. Increase your attack speed, your stamina regen, as well as your movement speed. So I used it in conjunction after sneaking up on Tempestuous Luandi here and absolutely caused carnage. It can work just as well with some of the other weapons and gear. It might even work with wands. I honestly never even thought to dual wield wands for some reason. It always just felt a bit weird. But yeah, look how much damage it did there. Level 2, you'll add lifesteal to it, and level 3, maybe not so good, it'll just last for 5 seconds longer. But it is a level 20 ability, so you won't be unlocking it until well into pretty much the last stages of the game. Quite like Into the Fray, being able to pull enemies towards you, especially from cliffs if they're shooting on you from range, is really good. It's a level 10 spell, and at rank 2 it will pull enemies from further. At rank 3 you'll pull multiple enemies. For sure, with ranged enemies, absolutely great for just knocking them off their stride for a few seconds, as it should stun them as well. I like Retribution as well, especially if you are a melee kind of berserker build. Taking damage from an enemy, your next attack within 5 seconds deals 70% of the original damage you received. So yeah, good for players that just wade in there. Only lasts 5 seconds, but particularly for melee users, I think it's worth it. And before I show off the rest of the skills that you can unlock, I do want to give just some general tips. Even if you're not planning to be a mage character, it might still be worth sinking a point into the Grimmer Mastery, especially if you've found a Grimmer with a bunch of spells. If you're the right player level and the Grimmer Mastery level, so basically early spells, you don't need to have unlocked the spells first as long as they are on the Grimmer. So you can see here I've got at least 4 I can use. Now you've got to upgrade the Grimmer Mastery to unlock the later, more higher tiered spells. And if you go ahead and unlock one of these spells individually on its own, it basically means you can cast it without having a Grimmer. But the benefits, as you saw there, you've got access to a shock ability, usually some sort of ice ability, and it's really good obviously for fire as well, for any kind of cobwebs, any of the traps that need the shock, and generally ice is really OP, helping freeze a bunch of different enemies. Sorry, frost, let's get it right, Jade. But yeah, anything that gives frost damage has got a chance of freezing an enemy, and apart from the mushroom dudes that you come across, lots of the enemies will be susceptible to it. The spells you see at the very top and rank 1, they're kind of meant to be your taster. See which ones you like and enjoy using. You can obviously spend points on them, but I would still wait until you can get a Grimmer and then go ahead and use the rank mastery at least once, as that usually unlocks a whole plethora or choice of them without you wasting your ability points on individual spells. Once you've chosen your build, what you want, then I would definitely make sure you pick up the abilities that give 25% extra damage to whatever it is. You can find some that do one-handed damage, two-handed melee weapons and wands, and they'll just increase the base damage by 25%. Upgrade them further and you'll get more damage out of them at level 2 and level 3, so it's definitely worth it. Wand mastery is the magic one, and you'll find a similar 2 abilities in the other skill trees. And before I move on to showing you the rest of the abilities, obviously I'll just mention that you do get godlike ones, but these get given via the story or finding some memories out in the world. They are really good and it can be easy to forget about using them, so make sure you've got them in your radial dial, because it can be easy just to forget you've even been given them. Have a good read and see what they do. The tutorial gives you the first one, the stealth kill, but you also get another one where you can revive your comrades when they're down, and then you get some that you find out in the world that give you buffs to health, stamina and more. It's definitely really good. Like firing a thorn through various different enemies, so yeah, definitely remember to use them. And companions of course have abilities. Again, I need to spend more time on this. I haven't actually unlocked Yatsli in this save, so I don't really want to be giving too much advice on this, but I would say for sure Giata is my favourite. She's got a ton of healing or protection spells that you can activate anytime, just like any of the companion abilities, so I would say focus on unlocking more abilities, giving you more choice rather than necessarily getting them to get heals. They do get down quite a bit, but if that's the case, it probably means that you are actually underleveled. So make sure you're leveling up properly and you've got the right equipment. Okay, a brief rundown now of all the other abilities. I'm not saying they're not worth it, they're not good. I'm just saying I think for generalists, maybe focus on the ones I've already mentioned. But otherwise, if you're building out your melee character, then of course you really want to go through some of the ones in fighter and actually ranger too. Charge attack costs 20 essence, cooldown of 10 seconds. And yeah, you can see what it does right there. It will knock enemies very far. But also with shielded enemies, especially good. You can double the distance charged by getting it to level 2 and increasing the stun dealt by charge at level 3 by 50%. I've already spoke about Armoured Grace, but pretty much a necessity for heavy users and maybe definitely medium too. Giving that little buff to stamina is really important. Shield Bash costs 15 essence, stamina 40, cooldown 3 seconds, attacking while holding block slams your shield forward to stun, push back and interrupt enemies. At level 2 it's going to give you an additional stun dealt by the Shield Bash, and level 3 increase the distance that enemies are pushed back. Constant Recovery, as I already showed you guys, a good passive that will help you regenerate your health. And likewise Toughness already showed off, giving you that extra health. Barbaric Shout, let a fearsome roar that interrupts enemies and empowers you against larger foes. Your weapon attacks become uninterruptible and deal higher stun. Now this is good for elite enemies, but it doesn't stop you from taking damage. That's why I don't really rate it as much. You still can get hit. It's almost like a last resort if you are just about to be charged by something big and powerful to try and stop them in their tracks. But yeah, otherwise I don't think it's as good as some of the others. Bleeding Cuts is good for anything with axes and swords, dealing extra bleed accumulation, and with Brawn you're increasing damage with two-handed melee weapons by 25%. So they do really go well as a set of abilities that you want to have for using two-handed axes. They obviously get stronger for each level. Bleed at level 2 will unlock more accumulation, level 3 even more. Increased damage with two-handed weapons by 25%, that goes up to 40 at level 2, and rank 3 50%. And yeah, I'm going to repeat it, some of these abilities it's not maybe worth going to rank 3 because you just don't get as much gain from them. This one maybe for a bit more of an agile fighter. Power Jump costs 30 essence, cooldown 20 seconds, press and crouch while in the air to slam to the ground, interrupting nearby enemies. The effective amount of stun dealt increased based on your full height. At level 2 you will be immune to any kind of fall damage, The damage dealt to enemies scales with the height of your fall, and if you get to level 3, the power jump will cost 0 essence. As you saw there, yeah, you got to be careful exactly how high you fall until you get the rank 2 where you take no fall damage. I honestly don't think this one's worth it at all. So stunning blows, increasing the stun damage that you do with maces and two-handed hammers, but only if you're using power attacks. Now there's no other extra kind of ability that pairs well with this, since it's a blunt weapon. You don't get like the bleed effect with them. They are more powerful by default, so I get it, it might be a bit OP, but that's just something to bear in mind. It's definitely a bit more of a niche going for hammers or maces in my opinion. Another one to avoid, built to destroy. You can go ahead and get small amounts of health and essence by breaking crates and pots and stuff, and melee attacks can destroy walls. I just don't think it's ever worth it. There's plenty of ways to break any of the barriers that you come across. Into the fray, yeah, really like that one obviously, as I included it already. Yanking enemies to you is always funny. Retribution, again already spoken about, giving a lot more damage to an enemy if they hit you, and that will just get stronger at level 2 and level 3. Clear out at level 20 is definitely obviously one of the last ones you unlock, but it's a lot of fun. You'll do a spinning attack doing a whole good amount of stun, but it's got an incredible amount of cooldown, and at levels 2 and 3 you'll do more spins. And killing enemies restores 10% of companions' maximum health. Yeah, maybe towards the end. I do notice my followers are starting to go down more and more, but effectively the stronger you are, the less chance that happens. Unbreakable means you can decrease the stamina cost when blocking by 30%, and that goes up to 60% at level 15. And a perfectly timed block with a shield or wand reflects arrows and similar projectiles back at the attacker. So it's pretty effective. Honestly, I think you're better off investing in the arcane veil and upgrading that so projectiles just get fired back. And we put some points into fists. Unarmed attacks are fine quality and can break wooden barriers and explosive barrels. And obviously you can upgrade this a whole bunch of times. In fact, it's the only ability that's got 4 ranks. And that's a huge difference going from 9 to 42. So rejoice, brawlers out there, there is a build for you. Alright, moving on to the ranger abilities still to show. Tanglefoot will root enemies in place, and then the subsequent upgrades add poison and increase the duration. As said, Marius has a very similar ability, and it doesn't stop enemies from actually hitting you still. But the added poison is pretty OP. Survivalist gives more health and essence, and bonus effect durations are increased by 20%, and to get even better recipes you can unlock rank 2. The rank 3 is definitely something I want to see, because there's a lot more obviously higher powered resources you get as you progress and what kind of meals you can make. So already covered the importance of parry. Steady aim, holding your power attack with a bow or gun slows down time by 25%, and level 2 50%, level 3 75%. Honestly a must have for any ranger or gun class. Really can line up your shots or just move around a little bit, and yeah, just great to use. Evasive reduces stamina cost of dodge by 25%, rank 2 stamina cost dodge by 35%, and rank 3 50%. I do use dodge quite a lot, and I nearly included it in my top 10, but it just all depends on your playstyle. Like if you are going to be a ranged character from distance, it might not be as important, and likewise melee, you just might be wailing in there. So yeah, I absolutely love this one as I showed off. Why not one more time? I definitely think it's great. Not just for big enemies, but obviously small ones too. Don't actually even have to go ahead and use it to kill anyone. You could use it just to sneak by and grab loot. Piercing thrust, very good for pointy weapons. Power attacks with daggers, swords and spears deal 25% damage. That increases to 35% and then 40%. Just like with the ability for two-handed axes, you would absolutely make this go with finesse, giving you that extra damage with one-handed weapons. But also a good ability maybe for two-handed swords, which I've not really spoken about, and you don't really see anything big for it. But obviously, yeah, this is a good one. And you've got marksman, the equivalent of finesse, but for guns and bows. Damage increase for bows and guns by 25%, and again that goes up to 50. Scavenger already included. Next up, power slides. I'm not a big fan of this one. Slide along the ground to go ahead and knock enemies over. Level 2 increase the distance and speed, and level 3 enemies will take stun. You'll be able to get definitely a few more hits in once they're on the floor, but meh. Next up, quick switch. Increase your equip speed by 50%. Passives are always good, and definitely for a gunslinger, maybe worth it, but the rest of the stuff, I'm not too sure. Bear ally already covered. Critical strike, increase your critical hit chance by 10%, then 15, then 20. Again, this nearly made my top 5 advanced abilities, but I still think it really suits a certain kind of style. Weapons like daggers, fast moving, that are going to give that high crit chance imbued already. But goes without saying, absolutely make sure you've got the other critical hit, as this will really boost that up as well. Sniper increases ranged weapon damage against unaware enemies by 25%, and then increase with each rank to level 35 and then 40. Flurry of blows we already covered, and then last ability in range class, staggering shot, which does more stun damage with power shots. For sure, power this up with your extra 25% damage from unaware targets, and you can make yourself a really good build for range, obviously with guns as well as bows. Alright, finishing off with magic. Minor missiles already covered, as well as armoured essence. Chill Blades is a really good ranged ice damage, doing a lot of frost accumulation along the way. Level 2 adds bleed damage, and level 3 means they can go through more enemies doing more damage. Fan of Flames unlocks the Fan of Flames, but level 2 can have both hands being used, and level 3 increased duration by 4 seconds. These powers really do look good two-handed. Jolting Touch, a beam of electricity that jumps from the caster's finger to the nearest enemy, and to then the next nearest enemy. So it lasts a good few, but you can rank it up and make it jump to 2 more enemies. If there's only 1 enemy, you'll actually do increased shock damage and shock accumulation at level 3. You can see it's still doing quite a bit of shock damage to him, even afterwards, as well as some stun. Corrosive Siphon will deal poison damage and then replenish the health stolen to you. Level 2 will keep an enemy in place when you use it, and level 3 will give you temporary extra health even if you're full. Arcane Veil, I told you guys I think it's one of the better abilities to use even if you're not a mage, giving yourself some extra protection. Okay, moving on to level 5, Blast. Power attacks with wands explode and impact, dealing reduced stun and explosive damage to nearby enemies. At rank 2 you get extra stun, and nearby enemies will receive the same amount of stun as the original. And rank 3, any nearby enemies caught in it will receive exactly the same. Bounce is pretty good. Power attacks with wands will make the element of the first attack bounce to another enemy. Ranks 2 and 3 will also mean they hit more enemies too. Wand Mastery, increased damage by 25%, then 40, then 50 for each rank. Then you got the Grimoire Master. Unlock level 5 Grimoire spells and decrease the essence cost of all Grimoire spells by 10%. At level 2 you get level 10 Grimoire spells and you can decrease the cost by 15. At level 3 unlock level 15 and then decrease the essence cost by 18%, and at rank 4 unlock level 20 Grimoire spells and decrease the essence cost of all Grimoire spells by 20%. So Blizzard is different from Chill Blades. Instead of being fired directly in front of you, it's an area effect that rains down. Rank 2 is going to reduce the cast time for Blizzard, and you can increase the duration by 6 seconds at level 3. Fireball, yeah, you know what a fireball is. Rank 2 you increase the effect of it, and rank 3 reduce the cooldown. Cracking Bolt, powerful bolt of electricity that bounces between enemies and environment 3 times, dealing high shock accumulation and stun. It's pretty similar to Jolting Touch, but obviously a bit more of a ranged one. You don't have to hold it a target once you've let go. Rank 2 you increase the bounce between enemies and environment 6 times, and rank 3 8 times. It's really good for dungeons, caves and stuff. Bristling Frost does a protective ring around you. I'm not a huge fan of these because normally as a wizard I want to be a bit more of a range away from enemies, but if anything does get close to you, it will give you a little bit more damage reduction by 10% and also deal frost accumulation to enemy melee attackers. Level 2 just does more of the accumulation, and level 3 reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds and increases the reduction by 15%. Grimoire Snap's another one that's good if you're getting attacked close up, as it will deal with shockwave explosive damage. Level 2 it will stun and knock enemies back further, especially tougher ones, and level 3 reduce the cost by 30%. Parasitic Staff, summon a staff negative energy for 30 seconds that restores essence. Now I always found that loads of essence potions were easy to craft, so it's always felt like a bit of a waste. If you really want it to be like a spell sword using magic weapons that you've conjured, then it could be a good one. Just make sure you're doing it in combination with something like Bristling Frost or Ring of Fire, so you're doing extra damage when you get up close and personal. Level 2, at the cost of 20 essence, the power attacks create a large area effect, dealing more stun and restoring a bigger proportion of essence. And level 3 increases duration to 45 seconds. Blood magic, when essence is depleted, you continue casting by reducing your health 150% of the essence cost. So that ends up being quite a big chunk of your health. Just take a look how much got drained here. You get so many ways to make essence potions. I just don't think this is worth it. Harvest essence, it's another one that I'm not that keen on. Essence dropped by defeated enemies restores 2 times as much essence. Again, something never really used. There's always little bits that often I don't pick up until I've finished the fight, especially with a mage class being at range. So I guess if you really are running out of essence, you haven't picked up enough foods to craft stuff at your camp, then maybe it could be a good one to use. But level 2 increases in how many drops you get, level 3 even more. I still think it's not really worth it. So Blast of Frost, channel Cone of Frost that deals enemy damage. Pretty much the cold version of Flame Fan of Flames. Yeah, and you can do it two-handed when you go ahead and level it up and increase its duration. Ring of Fire acts pretty much just like the Ring of Frost. Really good for obviously spell swords. And levels 2 and 3 are just going to make it better at dealing accumulated fire damage and last longer. Returning Storm conjures a powerful thunderstorm that strikes the earth with lightning bolts, stun and shot accumulation to nearby enemies. It does a good amount of damage, but not as widespread as you might think. So if enemies moving around quite a bit, it might be not as useful. But if you get level 2, you can actually keep enemies in place to make it actually more useful, which obviously does a lot more damage. So I would say it's worth trying to invest 2 points into it. Spirit Lance is pretty much summoning a lance or spear. Rank it up and you do more power attacks. Power attacks will do more explosion and deal great damage. And level 3 increases it to 45 seconds. Missile Salvo summons a sphere that will fire a volley of missiles. It stays in place, so I don't particularly like it that much. But if you rank it up to level 2, the final shot, if there's anyone still alive, will do a lot more higher damage to health, as well as dealing high stun. And level 3 increases the fire rate of the missile barrage. Position this exactly right and it can do a huge amount of damage, but yeah, you've got to have it pretty close. At level 15 you get a bunch of buff increases for your element powers. So if you notice you are using obviously fire damage a lot, then go ahead and boost it up by 20% at rank 1. At level 2, which you need to be level 18 for, player level, you can do it by up to 35%, then rank 3 45%. And that's the same for all 4 of the different elements: Frost, Flame, Shock and Poison. Freezing Pillar does a large pillar of ice damage into the ground. It's pretty similar to the Blizzard, costs more than double, but does last a bit longer too. At level 2 the pillar won't break on impact, but remains a lingering frost area effect, and then it will shatter after taking damage of 20 seconds apart, sending out explosive damage to nearby enemies, and then you can reduce the cost by 25% at the end. Black Bow is summon a magical bow. Level 2, pierce through enemies with your shots, only when they hit the environment will they stop. Level 3, increase the duration of it. Not so good against skeleton and undead, obviously the poison damage is pretty ineffective. Meteor Shower, level 20. Level 2, the meteorites will linger on the ground causing more flame damage, so in that way you could say it as a trap, and obviously it is a really powerful spell, and since it's locked as one of the last you can get. It does take a while to really get going though and cause some damage. So Pool of Aurora will make a vortex, pull into enemies and suspending them in the vortex. At levels 2 and 3 you'll be able to pull more enemies into the air. And then last, Arcane Seal, the only ability I couldn't actually go ahead and try out, as I needed a Grimoire with it and I guess it's really late game. But it's fairly simple in what it does. It will boost your essence boosting abilities. You regenerate your essence while you're standing in the actual seal, and then you'll increase your maximum cast ability speed too. So obviously for mage users at that stage of the game, it's obvious you need to get it. Just a note I guess on some of the grimoires as well, you can find them obviously at magic traders. That's going to be your best bet of getting a high level one. And there we go, it took a while but I got there and showed you pretty much every ability. Hopefully this gives you some tips about what kind of build you're going to make, what you're going to lean into. As said, points can be stingy, so you can go ahead and respec, but by that point you might have sunk a ton of stuff into your weapons and gear, and so it becomes a bit of an issue. Although you will have a lot more gold. It's worth noting that all fine armors and weapons sell for a lot more, like 600 coins compared to only like 30 or 40 for common. But equally, when you upgrade some of your stuff, it does cost quite a bit of gold as well. Let me know what character build you're going for. Is there any secrets or tips people should know? I'm going to be working on individual guides now, taking a look at maybe being a fire battle mage with all the correct gear and weapons to use. Likewise some other classes as well. So give me some ideas too. Until next time, Ratbags, I'll see you later.